Okay, my name is Paul Clifford. I am a director at a company called This is Flourish. We're a leading company within commercialization where we work with around 70 shopping centres across the UK. And in this series of conversations with various people around the industry, I thought it'd be very interesting to have a chat with Chris Wade, who is a director at the People, Places and People
The
and
People and
Places
Places
Partnership. There
Partnership.
we go. There we go. That rolls off the tongue. And I made a note there. It's with an objective to understand, to see what make towns tick. And is in a very simple.
Yeah, kind of broadly. I mean, the clue is in the name.
Yeah.
A lot of people are about places. We're about the people as well, and
Mm.
that kind of interaction. I get into all sorts of complicated ways about understanding how places work.
Yeah.
But as I said to you last time, and I know you're not a fan of the soundbite, and I'm not necessarily, but we're about understanding what makes places
Mhm.
tick, and our kind of ultimate goal is more smiling faces in places.
Yeah.
Now, within that, you're going to unpack that. Who are the faces? What are the places? How do they get into the places? But it's kind of quite a nice sort of thing to, amongst all the complications and metrics and pride and place and
Mhm.
cultural strategies, when somebody's doing something to improve the town centre experience or the
Mhm.
perceptions of a
Sure.
place, to just ask them and remind me how this is getting more people into town.
Yeah.
So a good example is we worked in a town and they came up with this fantastic idea of a Halloween festival in a woodland, and it was really successful, and they took money and a queuing and a wait list. And I said, just remind me of how that connected to your town centre. And
Mhm.
they were like, oh, yeah.
Event for the
Oh,
sake of
yeah.
an event. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're all, I suppose, in the industry where we're a little guilty of that, and I suppose that comes back to the point of objective, I guess, in time. Why are we doing what we're doing? But what you're doing is you're in a fairly unique sphere, aren't you? There's you and probably a couple of others within within your area, but not very many. A bit like us, we're kind of a slightly niche, somewhat uh, not cult. That sounds wrong, but nevertheless, we're just a very small circle of people that are doing this kind of thing, though taking it from very different angles. So so what? How did you get into this? Because that tends to be what I get asked, because you do such a strange job, if you will. How did you end up taking this route and ending up where you are?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, when you're in a job like this, is listening sometimes to your family explaining what you do and how
How does that
you
go?
realise what they don't really know what you
Oh,
do.
good. I'm not alone then.
My start in my career, I think one of the things about me is I kind of stick with things, and sometimes that's really good, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's less so. So I decided as a kid on a holiday in Scotland I wanted to be a forester.
Oh, okay.
So there's a
Interesting.
natural.
There you go.
And I set about that and I trained for that. And I started working in the forestry world. And I had a job as a temporary assistant manager
Hmm.
for a forestry company. And then I got an interview for a permanent job and they didn't give me it,
Oh,
which was a
hmm.
good thing.
Yeah.
And I asked for the feedback to my manager. And I said, why didn't you give me the job? I've been doing it for kind of 6 months. And he said, well, Chris, the thing is, when I'm driving in the car with you, you talk about everything. You're interested in everything except forestry.
All right. Okay. Here's a good indication.
So
Yeah.
I got into kind of rural development, so how do places work? And I found that places are more interesting than trees, basically.
Right. Yeah. Which is fair enough.
And more how places
Hmm.
work, um, how they develop in the kind of largest, widest sense. So from new housing development to sort of say, okay, we're developing new houses. Those people are coming to live
Hmm.
in your town with the hope that they're going to be part of the community.
Yes.
So don't build a house that's much easier to get onto the ring road
No.
than it is easy to get into the centre, and then find ways to kind of involve those people. So I had this kind of transfer from uh, trees to people
Trees.
and
Yeah.
pet
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
places. In my early days of town centre management, I spoke at a town centre conference and I tried to mix the two. And I think it's still valid, but see how you think this would go down with yourself and colleagues. I did try to compare the way towns operate to a forest ecosystem,
Right.
to
Okay.
say that there are kind of different levels from bushes to highest trees, and there are animals and moving around. And we have to look at them all and all the different facets. And I think people just were like, whoosh.
Yes.
But I think there's still a value in that. And I think what's kind of different about what we do at People and Places, as well as the people and the place, is we try and take a very holistic view. So it is from new housing estates to the government's focus on pride and place to community health centres to how car park apps work, all the things to kind of understand it is a bit of an ecosystem about getting the different people to move around and kind of tweaking it all really. So that kind of, I guess it's a systems approach to how things work.
And how do you, so I guess that in terms of what you do now, and you're presented with various projects where everyone wants someone to come in and I guess take the puzzle and try and piece it together in a way that works and makes some form of sense. Where do you begin when you look at a town centre that incorporates obviously the places that we work in terms of shopping centres, and where do you start your work? Where's the
Okay, well, the first thing I start is to see what's already going on. So kind of desktop review of all sorts of policies, initiatives, things that are in the pipeline to understand what's all going on. And sometimes you can see that some of the things that are being planned and talked about haven't happened.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So you need to have a way of unlocking them. Sometimes I think of one town I worked where my client was the leader and the chief executive of the council. Both, which is really great. And then I spoke to the kind of next level down and found that they all had strategies, plans, initiatives underway or ready to go. But two things, they weren't joining them up amongst the people around, from the car park managers to the licensing. They weren't joining their things up. And they weren't getting buy-in and understanding from the chief executive and the leader. So that worked really well, and I spent time really kind of with the internal stakeholders. And at the end of that, I had a kind of feedback meeting, and I thought, they're not going to like what I'm going to say, but it was broadly, it's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. And they listened, to their credit, and the chief executive said, who didn't come from a place background, said, it's more complicated than I thought, this place stuff, isn't it? I thought we could get rid of the homeless people and buy a street cleaning machine.
Right.
Job sorted. And he said, not only is it more complicated, actually, us as a local authority have quite a few levers that we can pull and work on with other people. So I said, that's great to hear. And that's part of what I say, the holistic side of things. And the leader said, it's about governance, isn't it? And the way we organize ourselves. And I said, that to me is really important. It's like running a business. You can talk about the product.
Yes.
But if you don't organize how you run it and operate it,
if the machine's not,
it doesn't happen. And actually, the deputy leader was in on that meeting as well. And she said, it's all about communication, isn't it? And so I thought, well, governance, communication, holistic approach. Now you're kind of going to be more receptive to. So we do that internal thing. We do that, and we look at strategies and what's already happening, and that's that's an example where that worked really well. But then we speak to stakeholders across the town, and we particularly talk to local businesses. So we will communicate with every local business in a town,
right,
and ask them their views.
What sort of feedback do you get as a rule from the small businesses within a town centre?
Well, avoid cobblers, because they will, I don't know what it is, but they will talk forever.
Well, hence the name.
And hence the name. So we'll get feedback, and some of it will be, it's just, although we're a kind of third party, which works quite well because we can say we're just the messenger, so tell us. But they'll initially say it's just great to have someone to come in, and listen to us, and we can capture it. We'll hear their views on decision-making process, but then we'll hear their views on practicalities, and it can be, very detailed practicalities. So in the town I was just talking about, one guy who had a successful business said, I like the Christmas market, but can you just sort of line your stores at 90 degrees angle so that they're not blocking customers?
Right.
Very kind of practical.
Mm-hmm.
We will always find, and we touched on it last time we talked, car parking.
Yes.
So wrongly or rightly, 50% of the businesses in every town typically will say, you know what the problem is?
Car parking.
And it's parking.
Yeah. And is that though just a generic response,
Yeah,
or is there real
I think it's
validity
very
behind it?
often a knee-jerk reaction, and because we've done this in lots of places, we know if only 35% of your businesses are moaning about car parking,
Yeah,
you're probably sorted.
you're probably okay.
Whereas then what we'll do, and we used to do this on street, we do it a lot more online. So we did this time last year. We were doing some piece of work in Hereford, and they were really pleased. We got, I think it's something like 800 responses in a 2-week period. A good range of ages and catchment area, and we asked them the similar questions, and they'll give our perspective. Not talking about Hereford particularly, but take the issue of parking. Well, if they're not saying parking's a problem,
Yes.
then
Yes.
that's kind of further evidence.
Yes.
What local people will often talk about is the business mix.
Yes.
From all sorts of ways, and again, that's a kind of knee-jerk reaction. So, the people that are saying, "Oh, not another cafe," you're thinking,
Yeah.
well, maybe you don't go in cafes.
But 5 years ago, I guess there used to be, it was, not another charity shop.
Yeah.
Where although that's not necessarily, completely extinct from high street, probably more subprime now than in the main high streets. But it was prolific, and that was the complaints. Another charity shop, and of course it was a rates mitigation route for the landlords at that particular time. But now it's coffee shops, which is interesting. I was talking.
It can be, yeah, it can be, depending on the profile of who you're asking. It's kind of understand that.
Yeah.
So we get that information of, we're kind of triangulating between what the local authority are doing largely, and business improvement district or chamber of commerce if they're there, what the businesses perceive, and what the customers perceive, and then we kind of share that back with all those people. And say, we've just captured information. What do you make of it? How can you explain it? And then that starts to get them more engaged in finding solutions than just knee-jerk reaction. That's a problem, and you work it through. Car parking in coffee shops. You'll say to businesses, it's like, well, let's take car parking as an example. As a customer, if you run a hospitality business, what kind of customer do you prefer? Do you want somebody who's lingers over a cup of coffee for an hour and a half, and that's all they spend? Or do you want a family that are in and out, buying a meal, but are on doing something else? Well, that's the same way in terms of how we need to maybe manage the turnover in the car parking.
Yeah.
So pricing and different locations and what car park is for who.
Yeah.
And then they start to think, oh yeah, now I can get a view of that. Or I did similar engagement in my role as part of the High Street Task Force in a Manchester suburb.
Yeah.
And again, I could talk to the businesses there, just like I said to you, is we can talk about physical things to improve within your town centre, and yes, crossing your road is an issue, but let's also talk about how we're going to organise and do things and deliver things and make sure these plans happen.
Yeah.
And the businesses there, they woke up to that because they were like, yeah, they know, as a business, and one of them was a McDonald's franchise holder, and I think successfully ran a number, and he was like, yeah, my business operates on my know-how and
Yes.
and working with the franchise. as much as the product, really. So
Yeah.
so it's understanding the place, and then working through solutions. And I divide the kind of looking at
Hmm.
solutions. We're focusing on smiling faces in places,
Yeah. Yeah.
but to get there, we're looking at the what,
Hmm.
which I would call the hardware and the software
Hmm.
of the places. And the hardware is travel, property, the streetscape, things that people perhaps more obviously think of.
Yeah.
And then the software is that business
Hmm.
mix, is the marketing, is the events,
Right. Yeah.
the kind of so the hardware, software, the look and the feel. But it's important to say to people, but you need to think about both.
Yeah.
You may be passionate about one or other thing, and that's
Mm.
fine. But somewhere within what we're trying to do, we've got to have people looking across the piece.
And I suppose there's a degree of value here. I was sort of thinking about the car park scenario. I'm not suggesting that's indeed the problem itself, but if I, from my own perspective, if I look at car parks at two ends of the scale, and you look at somewhere like Gunwharf Quays in Portsmouth, and you go in there and you've got green lights and red lights, so you can see in advance, and it's it's appropriately expensive as a space. It's not £2 an hour, I don't think. But you go in and you go, this is a well looked after car park. And in contrast, then you go to Gatwick or Heathrow, which is incredibly expensive. You're unlikely to pick a relative up for less than 15 to 20 quid. And the car parks are dark, poorly maintained. And I wonder, in terms of an experience part, that it's a bit like a coffee, isn't it? If Costa is expensive as a coffee, other great coffee shops available, of course, but there's a perceived value and experience that's linked with that thing. So if you take the car parks example, the perceived experience within the airport is one that is in some cases the directions aren't particularly good, and it's incredibly expensive, and the experience of where you park your car and when you look around is quite poor, and the price and the quality is completely out of balance. Where Gunwharf Quays is probably more in balance. It's not cheap, but it's a bit expensive, and I wonder, is that experience bit more important than the price point necessarily? Not entirely. There will be there'll be a degree of price elasticity, of course, but as long as it's within a reasonable level and you can see investment in the car park and it's well lit and all the things that we've talked about for the last 10, 15 years, in fact, I wonder, would that not be an important point of focus that would mitigate any perceived downside with the car park theory, versus and using the Gatwick or Heathrow car parks versus Gunwharf or any other decent car park that's perhaps in existence.
Yeah, well, we got so kind of, I won't say fed up, but so in tune with the fact that people were saying
Mm,
parking's the issue. So
yeah.
going back to our P's, we formed the people, places, and parking process.
Yes. Oh, and another four piece.
Four
Excellent.
P's,
Wowzers.
the P's of marketing.
Yeah.
And we kind of looked at that. And, one of the things we asked people is, what's important to you about parking? And beyond the knee-jerk reaction that it's all about price, it isn't.
Mhm.
Um, it's about what the town centre offer is as well.
Yeah.
Um, but it's about things like the quality, and that's about how you get to the car park.
Mhm.
It's about the convenience. Is it near to where you want to be?
Mhm.
And if you're a visitor to a place, has anybody ever explained to you the relationship between where you're parking or
Yeah.
arriving and other modes of transport and where you want to be? And then it's availability.
Mhm.
Um, can you park in where you want, when you want? And then we always find there's a way of moving
Mhm.
moving things around.
Yeah.
So a good example then is, what do you do with worker parking?
Yes.
And businesses will start off from the premise, well, we need our workers to park cheaply
Mhm.
near the business. And you're like, yeah, talk me through that.
Mhm. Yeah. And how do they do that?
And where are your customers
Yeah.
parking
Yeah.
then?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
so you kind of work that through,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
it's
Mm.
it's not unreasonable to say to workers, well, if you're parking for a lot less, but a 10-minute walk,
Yes.
but you're there for 8 hours maybe or 4 hours.
Not
So
for 2 hour dwell. Yeah.
um,
And obviously the primary individuals to look after is the customer, because
the
ultimately
customers,
that's
and to work out who the customers are. So we
yeah.
talk about pop and shop customers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's somebody who's,
Grab
ordered a pair of
sandwich.
glasses
Oh, okay.
or whatever,
Right.
but
Okay.
they want to be in and out.
Yeah.
They want to try on their
Yeah, yeah.
glasses and,
And go.
they've just spent 120 quid, but
Yeah.
you might be stopping them doing
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that might be on-street car parking, which is a whole another area.
Yeah.
You've kind of got your leisure shopper or leisure and social shopper who's in there for a
Mhm.
kind of bit of experience, to linger, so they might want to park reasonably centrally, but feel under no pressure that they can't linger because,
Yeah.
and there are ways to do that now with, parking apps and
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then that's part of the issue. Clash with residents,
Mhm.
which
Yes.
you need to think about.
Of course. Yeah.
And resident parking, etc., etc.
Mm.
And then your commuters, who they will be habitual, but you can change their habit because
Yep.
they're quite price sensitive, because it's an everyday thing. So
Yes.
50p every day,
Yeah. Starts to build
saving or whatever.
Mhm. Mhm.
But then they will work out. I've worked in town centres and I realise that I might have a 10-minute walk, but that's instead of a 15-minute traffic queue.
Yes. Yeah.
So actually, so you can kind of work through that. And whenever we go in a place, we always kind of find there's kind of a quick solution, and some of that's about communicate. We did a piece of work some years ago in a town in the southeast where the station car park you perceive
Mhm.
will be expensive and full.
Yes. Yes.
So you don't go there. And actually, we found this station car park was empty and cheap.
Right. Okay.
So it's just a matter of kind of rebranding that, not the station car park, but for the town centre.
Yes.
And then putting good signs and things to say how to get to the town
Mhm.
centre.
Yeah.
So yeah, without this being a parking podcast,
Yes. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a good example, and it was an example of us. It's like, well, people are saying this is a problem,
Yeah. Yeah.
so we can't say but we want to talk about redesigning your public spaces.
Yeah.
Let's run with that. And
Yeah.
kind of 8 years later, we combined with a parking specialist. So we now jokingly refer to ourselves as Mr. Parking and Mr. Places.
Right. Okay.
But it's a kind of good way. And I learn all the time when I'm working with him
Mhm.
about a different perspective.
Mhm.
But we can kind of second guess what we're going to say. And it's about really just ensuring that parking functions
Mhm.
as part of the place.
Absolutely.
And it
Yeah.
helps you enjoy the
It's,
place.
it's for most of it's where it begins, isn't it? Although, interestingly, this is what we touched on when we caught up prior to this, was the journey itself.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about that, because the perception sometimes by many of us is that it starts at the car park, doesn't it? But of course, it doesn't, does it really?
It
As we
doesn't.
were
It
discussing.
starts with perceptions of place. So another area I've got into a lot is the whole area of what's called place branding and identity.
Mhm.
I'm not entirely comfortable with the place branding because it makes its places sound like a tin of Coca-Cola, but it's about communication skills,
Mhm.
understanding customers, getting messages across, promoting places, and all those skills, which apply to all aspects of
Yeah.
towns and cities, but apply to getting people into town.
Yes.
And so you have to kind of think, what are people's perceptions
Mhm.
of place? I was looking recently. There's a lot of people talking about this opportunity to be a town of culture in 2028,
Yeah.
and there's lots of enthusiasm
Mm.
about it, and that's kind of great. But it's thinking, what I'm saying to people about that is people will have preconceptions about your place, and you either need to run with them because
Mhm.
they're good,
Yeah.
or challenge them.
Yeah.
And so whether it's about town of culture or getting people interested in your
Mhm.
place, you need to challenge those preconceptions. And I tracked and got engaged a bit in the town of Stockport, Greater Manchester.
Oh, okay.
Community activists there went with why going back 15 years or so, why do people have negative perceptions about our town, and what
Yeah.
are those negative perceptions? Looked at some of those perceptions and then the kind of positives.
Hmm.
There also happen to be things going on like somebody else enterprisingly brought in this Foodie Friday, this monthly event,
Yep.
which kind of created a real buzz. And other things began to happen. And so they boldly went with the counter to what could apply to lots of places, but they were brave and cheeky to do this.
Hmm.
They went with the identity of Stockport isn't shit.
Right. Okay. It's an interesting
Um,
strapline, isn't it?
It
Yeah.
is. It's challenging, and you can imagine people in other neighbourhoods within Manchester going, "I'm not going to Stockport. Stockport's
Yeah.
shit."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So they're
I suppose it
like,
addresses
"Okay,
the
well let's hit that head on."
stick.
And so
Yeah.
they took advantage of other things that are happening, like this Food of Friday, like a project under the old Portus Review
Yeah.
to animate the town centre,
Mm.
and it's gone now from kind of having a negative track record
Hmm.
to being winning awards for
Yeah.
its events, its animation. It was Manchester's Town of Culture a couple of years
Yes.
back.
Yeah. I remember.
And you can see it now in things like the Sunday Times kind of cool
Which
places
is
to
bizarre,
be.
isn't it? Because I funny we met him in an old life. We looked after what was then the shopping centre
Right.
there, Castlegate, I think it was. And so you're right. There was, and it was certainly it felt tired and a little run down. And interestingly, it shows, doesn't it? If you get the pieces in the right order, and I guess get the timing right, it could become an example. Because it certainly won. I know it won awards. Was it a Revo last year for innovation or change? It's now become a repeated. Go back 5 years ago and tell someone on the street this would be, or maybe how long? I don't know how long it's been there. A bit longer than that, hasn't it? But 10 years ago, perhaps, they would be astounded to think that's how it's been transformed. But it just shows, I suppose, what is possible.
Yeah, and it's kind of changes perceptions. I watched with a lot of interest Bradford last year
Right? Yeah.
as UK City of Culture because I'm part of the Bradford diaspora.
Okay.
In that my family left
Right.
when I
Okay.
was 3. And so kind of, grandparents used to live there, so kind of familiar with it.
Yeah.
Even as a non-resident of Bradford, I spent most of my life apologising for being from there.
Right. Okay.
Because when you say, you say, I'm from Yorkshire, that's interesting, West Yorkshire, oh, okay. Whereabouts in West Yorkshire? Bradford, or as one person from Bradford once communicated to me at a conference, 7 miles from Leeds.
Oh, right, just outside Birmingham.
But actually, I've seen, within my kind of professional circles, people paying a lot more attention to Bradford, going there. Again, they got it right. Fortuitously, they'd been working on changing physically what the city centre looked like.
Yeah.
They had a wider cultural development strategy, of which being the UK City of Culture was only one piece of it. So they'd been working away quietly, but this year put them in the spotlight.
Yeah.
A city former theatre and cinema where my parents used to go dancing in the 1950s, that had sat empty for 20 years.
Wow.
Was restored at huge cost and reopened also during this year.
As what? And what was it reopened as?
It's reopened as a music venue.
Oh, okay.
And the old ballroom is fully restored back to its period where my parents used to dance. Fascinating to see. They've moved the indoor market and it's got much more of a food vibe going on. So lots of things came together. And they didn't have a kind of formal branding strategy, but I feel the city's image has changed.
Yeah.
I think the test of time will be, does that continue?
Yeah.
But so it's about changing perception. So in the past, Stockport, Bradford, other places, people will have sat home, partly down to their own lack of knowledge, and said, there's nothing to go there for.
Yeah. And they leave that town, they go to another.
There always
town.
were things to go there for, but you had to kind of look for them.
Or know where they were.
And the image wasn't strong.
A bit like your car parking idea of
let's not get back to car
perception
parking,
and reality.
but
Yeah,
yes.
I know we've done lots of car parks.
Yeah, so you need to sow the seed in people's minds in different ways, and then communicate it.
Sure.
Communicate it in a way that doesn't make it sound something it isn't. Is real, and then you start to get people's attention. So I'm very interested in kind of how we understand the identity of places and then communicate it.
Yeah.
I've looked across. There are international indices for what do people value about the brand of a town.
Right.
And there are lots of things, and it's interesting to see that, they can be things like educational institutions, health services at a city-wide, which, kind of really important if you're looking to relocate. But the thing that is constant across all these indices is culture, and culture in its different senses. So kind of a bit on the back of Stockport, I took a deep dive last year into the culture of food.
Okay.
Which not everybody defines as culture. But for me, food that has some connection with the place or animates the place or uses its buildings.
Yeah.
So again, that's kind of very much on trend.
Yeah.
How can we get people in because of the hospitality offer? So it's not another cafe. It's people are coming in because of that.
It's within that field of food and beverage, but that's beyond that. So I suppose talking about Stockport and that change, and this is true. When you go back even further, I remember I worked in I was opening an IKEA in Ashton under Lyne, and we would pop into Liverpool, and this was sort of 2005-6 time, and the docks were pretty boarded up, and then we're 20 years later, which isn't that long really, I suppose. It's just night and day, and it just shows the way in which towns can change the way they look and feel over a relatively short period of time, which I suppose leads into that's 20 years. It must be 20 years now. God.
Yeah.
But what do you think's changed over the last, say, even 10 years? What's been the evolution, shift, and change within the broader town centres and high streets over that period?
Well, a number of things. The obvious thing is this: towns used to be criticised for being clone towns.
Yes,
everywhere the
homogenised
same.
high street, as we were saying. Yeah,
and that was in the case in Cambridge, where our office is based, was one of those listed as clone city. Not completely true, because they looked at the very central part of Cambridge. If you kind of spilled out into the surrounding areas of the neighbourhood, you'd still find that variety and those independents. But I remember in that time travelling from Cambridge to Swansea, which was going through quite a lot of change, had a lot of vacant units, but actually found there was a lot of creativity within Swansea, arts, culture, housing, and lots of things happening, because it was much more affordable to do different things in Cambridge than it is in Cambridge, and than it still is in Cambridge. So there's that kind of thing, and we don't want to completely get rid of multiple retailers within town centres, because they're an important part of the offer. But having opportunity for kind of a bit of variety around the sides or mixed in amongst. So there's that going on. The pandemic obviously was a huge impact in terms of how we work and how we travel or not into places. But that also created opportunities for smaller places away from cities. So those are kind of key trends. I track, and I'm very interested in how people travel to town.
Right. Yeah.
And kind of take a very open and non-judgmental view. You can choose to travel by car. You can cycle, you can walk, you can look at public transport, whatever. My view is we need to be in the business about giving people choices.
Of course.
And that's something that will continue to change, and make travelling into town a kind of positive experience. We did a project for the British Parking Association.
We're back to parking again. I didn't go back there. That was you.
Where they had a scheme called park active.
Right.
The idea was that you could park peripheral
Right.
to the town centre, and it's cheaper, and you'd complete your journey on foot or even on bike. I said, yeah, but we want to make that. It's not just park active; it's active and attractive.
Yeah.
So that goes back to whether it's visitors who. So we did a piece of work in Brighton where we, under the Park Active brand, located or themed it Park Active
Yep.
in a peripheral car park. Happened to be near the seafront, happened to be near a bus route, happened to be near existing cycle hire.
Right.
And so part of your day going into Brighton was you can park without traffic in a cheaper place where there is space,
Yeah.
and you can take a bike along the seafront.
Mm.
And that's kind of part of your package.
Yes. And forms
Yeah.
part of that experience.
So there are a number of trends constantly happening within town and city centres.
Well, you mentioned earlier when you were it's interesting you talk about choice in transport, and I suppose in my world it's we're working with all independents, but we work with a number of people that are about 60% of our businesses within a particular centre are made up of local, even franchises. It's been bought by a local person to then open up. So even when you see a national brand like I don't know Krispy Kreme, it's probably a local business that's open and running. Not in all cases, but in some. So where do you how important within the fabric now, with your understanding of town centres, how important is those independent businesses? I completely take on board what you're saying about the nationals. We would call those in the shops. They would be like theoretical anchors, I suppose. They're the things that kind of
Yep.
draw the people
Yep.
in. But then when you get there, you want to see something different. But how important are those independents in populating the bodies of the high street today in order to create the high street that we think the public want?
Well, I think it goes
Variables.
back to smiling faces in places, doesn't it, really? Partly what you do is supporting businesses that can bring life
Yeah.
to shopping centres and sometimes on the streets and
Yeah.
other venues. So I think that kind of really is important in that the feel side of places.
Yeah.
You can have physically perfect places,
Yeah.
but if they're not brought to life,
Yes.
and if you can't, buy stuff that you need as well at an
Yeah.
affordable price. So I think
Sure.
the variety, whether it's small holders that are completely independent or a franchise, in a shopping centre, that's bringing it to life, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the same thing with market traders on a street, buskers or whatever. I came across a concept. We do network internationally.
Right. Yeah.
I've produced recently a training program for an Australian-based
Okay.
organisation called Placemaking Education about the pride and place concept. But one of the things I picked up from them was an Australian city which had flipped on its head this sort of computer says no attitude in that you can't busk, you can't trade.
Right.
You can't do street
Everything's
performances. You
licensed driven
can't.
and
Everything's
compliant. Yeah.
licensed
Yeah.
in a
There's a
way
little bit
that
of that over here with
there is.
all-
No, there
is that
is.
with
There is.
local
There is. And
authorities?
when
Yeah.
we've worked with community organisations, it's like banging your head against a wall to close a street for a weekend to put something on that will bring people in. It's like people are just so they flipped that on their head
Interesting.
and called it a license to play.
Oh wow, that's great. I like
James
that.
Bond, license to play.
Yeah, very good.
To say that we start from the premise that we'll say yes.
Right.
We are putting in a few checks and balances to make sure what you're doing is legit and it doesn't clash. But our emphasis is on we are working with you to make it happen.
Yeah.
It's just a kind of subtle switch in behaviour, isn't it? Really, but it's kind of it's nicely phrased.
It's interesting that over here we have challenges with well, however you want to praise it, where you'll bring in if you want to do in a shopping centre or in a town, I think I'd like to put some additional life into the body of the town, where you can get independent businesses to come in and take space. But then you have the challenges sometimes of the market charter, the 6 3/4 mile principle. You can't have anything else arguably competing with it. But I do wonder, and we've had occasions where it's been a fair distance from it. All it does is enliven that space for both the for the customers and the retailers around it, and then it's been blocked. As you say, there's very much a case of will the system say it's a no scenario before it's a yes scenario? And there is sometimes, and not in all cases, because we work with a number of local authorities like Sefton and Medway who are forward thinking, and they're redeveloping, and they're doing some really interesting things. But we have some occasions we do bang our heads a little bit against the wall, because there appears to be not much in the way of rational, sometimes, thought about what are we doing, why are we doing it, and does it truly add value to that environment, or is it genuinely cannibalizing something else? And I don't think the playbook that they work within, and it's not their fault, but the playbook doesn't accurately measure the impact of what you're doing in a way that is positive only when it's negative.
No, we saw some changes in thinking about that and licensing for hospitality and trading during the pandemic, didn't we? Where we saw
Yes.
a kind of loosening and a simplification.
Yes.
Some of that continues, some of that lives on. But it also goes back to that, what I was talking about at the beginning, where, I got that chief executive and that leader to kind of just think things through. And
Yeah.
that response from the chief executive to say, "Oh, it's complicated, isn't it? We need to join up the dots, and we can be an important part of doing that."
Yeah.
And then, and then the mentality is that your different departments are all working to this
Yes.
common
Yes.
mission,
Mhm.
which is, if we don't get more smiling faces in places,
Yes.
then residents of ours that are running businesses are going to
Yes.
suffer. People that want to come and enjoy the town are going to go, it's a bit
Yeah.
shit.
No one wins, do they? You fill out the form,
No,
but
no. So there are kind of cultural shifts within organisations.
Mhm.
The kind of computer says yes
Yes.
model,
Mhm.
whilst not having a free for all. Yeah.
And maybe those are the ones that will thrive over the next few years if they're already thinking and working that way. And as I say, there are examples, as you've illustrated well, of locations that have really taken the bull by the horns and seen the outcome of that. So, like Stockton, as a prime
Yep.
example, and there's Bradford, you're saying, and so on. So you're seeing pockets of it. And interestingly, for me, in part, it's funny. We live in a world very much where everyone wants to be innovators, but no one wants to be first, and they wait to see almost a proof of concept before they'll. Obviously the downside is they're obviously 3, 4, 5 years behind the business or the local authority has done it, and these guys are surging ahead. So I guess just with the last few minutes we've got, we've talked about the past, we've talked about the pieces that make up it, we've talked a bit about car parks, I believe. But I suppose, if you were to try and wrap up what not utopian, but an ideal a town centre would look like in, say, 5 years' time that you were walking into, how would that look versus
Well,
today?
I'd flip it a little bit, really, and say that will depend on the place.
Sure.
The government at the moment have kind of teased us all to say they're going to introduce a high street strategy.
Yes.
My view is focus on the how, not the what. So from central government down through new strategic combined authorities, down
Yes.
to local government that's reorganized, down to individual places that people can relate to,
Yep.
business improvement districts, town councils, bringing people together. It's kind of like the ideas are out there, whether it's animating places, markets, food courts, independent retail.
Yeah.
The ideas are out there for kind of a pick and mix
Yes.
to suit your place. But how are we going to do it? How are we going to make it happen? So it can be a 10, 15, 20-year journey.
Sure. Yeah.
But it has to be a journey, and obviously you have to be adaptable along the way. So my view is enable things to happen. So the computer says yes on a big way. So the strategic authorities, their role is about transport and transport planning and housing. It's like, okay, well, do that, but on a way that gets down to the local level. So there's local input so that you can see that new housing estates are connected to the town centre, and they're not a blight on your town. They're a bonus.
Yes.
Kind of make it all work together. So my view to the government is learn to let go,
Right. Get control.
but ensure that at the different layers where decisions are made,
Mhm.
right down to the area where people are passionate about their own place,
Of course.
that
Yeah.
what you're doing is coming up with a coordinated plan. You're bringing everybody in. They're seeing what their role is, whether it's organising a festival, whether it's running a shopping centre, whatever it is, and they see how it fits, and then you're freeing them to play to their passions, to
Yep.
do it really well, but in a way they say,
Mhm.
if I do my bit back to my ecosystem, it complements the other bits,
Yes.
and the place is going forward. And let's, every 6 months, once a year, just kind of get together to say, how are the pieces of jigsaw coming together, and it's kind of have that staying power.
Yep.
Political administrations will change, but people's passion about places doesn't.
No.
There may be tweaks in priority,
Mhm.
but you need to be able to kind of follow through. So my advice to places locally or government centrally
Mhm.
is let's focus on how we're going to do this.
Mhm.
And enable that. We know that there are lots of bits out there that work. We just need to assemble them in the
In the
right
right
way.
order and get the right people
Yeah,
behind
yeah,
each part.
yeah.
And ultimately, that's what you do.
That's
You're the
that's a big part.
architect.
Yeah, we pull things together. The what, the how, the soft, the hard,
Yep.
and kind of help people bring up people in so that they feel kind of part of it,
Yep.
that they know what their role is. It's the problem is that's a kind of invisible glue. Not everybody kind of
Yes.
gets that. I want to build something. I want to create something. It's like, well, you can, but let's see how it fits in with
The broader picture.
with other people.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And just very quickly and lastly, what are you working on right now? Because you're pretty you're I get a lot of digs about how much stuff I put on LinkedIn, but I am secondary to some of you guys, you included. So what? And I guess people will see this over the next 6 months or so. So what's precisely you working on?
Well, I'm running with the idea is being used more prominently about Pride in Place.
Mhm.
Something that we've talked about for 5-6 more years, really. So
Yep.
it's kind of like running with, but what does that mean? What
Yeah.
does that mean? And again, my view is you can't be proud of something that you're not involved in or you don't feel some control of. I can't be proud about other people's children. I
Yes.
can be proud about my own.
Of course.
So I don't have to have reshaped my town centre, but I need to
Yeah.
feel that it relates to me.
Yeah.
And I've looked at particularly the role of young people in what town and city centres offer them,
Mhm.
and how they feel part of it, how they feel proud, and how they're kind of a bit of the future of places.
Mm.
And what I've found by looking, there's something called the government's Community Life Survey. They survey 175,000 people every year, so it's a good
Right.
source of data
Yep.
that isn't used.
Yeah.
So I've looked at that to say, okay, let's look at young people and say, on this journey to feel proud about where they live, what do we need to do? And to then embed that in all these places around the country that have been charged with spending
Mhm.
up to £20 million on developing Pride and Place.
Yep.
It's like pride is a sentiment about places felt by people.
Yep.
So focus on the people.
Yep.
It's about the people and the place. And for young people, what you'll find is they don't engage with decision making in the same way.
Mhm.
They're a bit suspicious of it.
Yep.
That what they want out of a place is different.
Yeah.
They might not feel they want to engage because they're transient. They haven't decided they're going to put roots down here.
Yeah. Well, I suppose we move around a lot more.
And they move around a lot. And the
Yeah.
other thing to think about with young people is what you want when you're 16 is different from what you want from your 21 and when you're 26. So actually your needs change
Yeah.
very quickly, but there will be more coming behind you. So it's just an example of focusing on,
Mhm.
if we want to meet different sectors of the community's needs, we need
Yes.
to understand them and bring them with us. What we do find, whether it's young people or people from a more disadvantaged background, because they're not wholly sure about what's going on now,
Mhm.
they're going to be much more positive about change,
Yeah.
probably, and embracing it. Whereas we've got people that may be making the decisions in places who are 55 and plus,
Yeah.
who will say, we want things how they used to be.
Yeah.
This thing what I call the negative nostalgia of it ain't what it used to be. And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, it won't be, but it can be something else.
The rose-tinted glasses thing, isn't it? But
Yeah.
but it's interesting. So yeah,
Yeah, so
the future
it's
children.
back to understanding how places work, the role of people within them, and then applying that to an initiative that is pumping resources into places at the moment, but we're
Yeah.
kind of just saying,
Mm.
but are you doing it in the right way with the right people?
Well,
And
and we can measure that through smiles.
you can measure
Through
that through
the smiles
you can measure that through sentiment on social media,
as well. Yeah.
as a
Yeah. Of course.
proxy for smiles, for
Yeah, yeah.
example. Yeah.
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 That's
And people are through word of mouth encouraging their peers to go into town and enjoy it.
Well, that's been really interesting, Chris. Yeah, I think we've covered a bit of car parks. I know I went back to it because I'm just fascinated with car parks, probably because I parked in Gatwick recently.
Well, everybody has a view on
As
them.
a view in a car park, yeah, good,
Everybody
bad, and
strangely,
indifferent.
yeah.
But yeah, the time's gone again. It's back. It's still 9:30.
Right.
As my wife will point out. So yeah, thanks again for coming along.
Hey.
And yeah, we look forward to seeing your projects all over LinkedIn. I'll try and keep up over the next year.
Yeah, and I shall follow Flourish with renewed passion.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Chris.
Okay,
Thank you.
cheers.